She became wife to the poorest mountain man. Then he took her to a hidden forgotten kingdom in the clouds. In a quiet frontier town surrounded by tall mountains and long open land, life moved slowly. People knew each other well, and everyone talked about everyone else. In this town lived a young woman named Elira. She came from a respected family, but her life was not as comfortable as it once used to be. Her family had lost much of their wealth, and now they struggled to maintain their place in society. People in the town often spoke about Elira's future. Many believed she would marry someone rich or powerful to bring honor back to her family. But fate had other plans. One day, a decision was made that shocked everyone. Elira was told she would marry a man from the mountains. Not a wealthy man, not a famous man, not someone from the town or even nearby villages. He was a mountain man, someone who lived far away in the cold highlands, away from society, away from comfort, and away from the modern world. His name was Kale. No one in town knew much about him. Some said he was poor. Some said he preferred to live alone. Others said he rarely came down from the mountains unless necessary. He was quiet, unknown, and completely different from what people expected for Elira. When Elira first heard the news, she could not believe it. She stood still for a long time, trying to understand if it was real or just a mistake. But it was real. Her family had arranged the marriage, hoping it would give her some kind of stability, even if it was far from the life she once imagined. The townspeople reacted quickly. Gossip spread everywhere. Some felt sorry for her. Some were confused. Others simply shook their heads and said she had been given a life too difficult to understand. But Elira said very little. Inside her heart, she felt a mix of emotions: fear, confusion, and uncertainty. She did not know what kind of man Kyle truly was. She only knew what people said about him, and none of it was clear enough to form a true picture. The day of the marriage arrived quickly. There was no grand celebration, no bright decorations, and no loud music. It was simple and quiet, almost like the town itself was unsure how to react. Kyle arrived alone from the mountains. When he stepped into the town, people noticed him immediately. He was not dressed like others. His clothes were simple and worn from travel, but he stood straight and calm, as if the long journey had not tired him at all. He did not speak much. He did not look around with curiosity. Instead, he simply focused on what needed to be done. When Elira finally saw him, she felt something unexpected. He did not look dangerous or careless. He looked calm. His eyes were steady, and there was a quiet strength about him that she could not explain. He greeted her politely with a small nod. "I have come as agreed," he said softly. His voice was calm, not loud, not demanding, just simple words spoken with honesty. Elira did not respond immediately. She was still trying to understand everything happening around her, but she noticed something unusual. Kale did not look at her with judgment or expectation. He looked at her with respect, as if she was not a burden, but a person he was willing to walk beside. The ceremony was brief. There were no long speeches, no promises made in front of crowds, just a quiet agreement between two lives now connected. After it ended, many people expected Elira to cry or refuse to go. Some even thought she might change her mind at the last moment. But she did not. Instead, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. Kyle turned slightly and spoke again. "The mountains are far from here. The path is not easy, but it is safe." Elira looked toward the direction he pointed. Far beyond the town, tall mountains stood under the sky like silent guardians. She had never gone that far before. It felt like another world. She hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded. And so, without grand farewell or celebration, Elira left her town behind and began walking beside a man she barely knew, toward a life she could not yet understand. No one in the town believed this journey would lead to anything special, but none of them knew what truly waited beyond the mountains. Elira's journey with Kale began in silence. After leaving the town behind, the path slowly changed. The roads became narrower, the air became cooler, and the sounds of everyday life disappeared. There were no markets, no houses, and no people. Only mountains, trees, and long, quiet trails stretched ahead. At first, Elira felt uneasy. She was used to seeing people, hearing voices, and living in a place where everything was familiar. But now, she was walking into a world she did not understand. Every step felt like she was moving further away from everything she had ever known. Kale walked ahead of her most of the time. He did not rush her, but he also did not stop. He moved with calm confidence, as if he had walked this path many times before. Sometimes he would look back to make sure she was following, but he rarely spoke. When he did speak, his words were short and simple. "Careful here. The ground is uneven. Rest if you need." Elira noticed that he never complained, even when the path became steep or difficult. He seemed comfortable in the silence of the mountains, as if it was where he truly belonged. Days passed like this. Slowly, Elira began to adjust. Her fear did not disappear, but it became softer. She started to notice small details around her. The way the wind moved through the trees, the sound of water flowing in hidden streams, the way birds flew freely above the high cliffs. It was a different kind of world. One evening, they stopped near a flat area surrounded by large rocks. The sky was turning orange as the sun began to set behind the mountains. Kyle started a small fire without much effort. He moved with skill, gathering wood and building the fire quickly. Elira sat nearby, watching him quietly. She finally spoke after a long silence. "You live like this? All the time?" Kyle looked at the fire for a moment before answering. "Yes." Elira was surprised. "Alone?" Kale nodded. "For a long time." She did not know what to say after that. The idea of living alone in such a place felt impossible to her. But Kale did not seem sad or lonely. He seemed at peace. That night, as they rested under the open sky, Elira could not sleep. The stars above the mountains were brighter than anything she had ever seen before. It felt like the sky itself was closer here. She turned slightly and saw Kale sitting quietly, watching the horizon. "Do you ever go back?" she asked softly. Kyle did not look at her immediately. "Not anymore," he said. "Why?" There was a pause before he answered. "Some paths are left behind for a reason." His words were simple, but they carried something deeper that Elira could not fully understand. The next morning, they continued their journey. As they moved higher into the mountains, the environment began to change. The trees became fewer, and thick mist started to appear between the rocks. The air felt lighter, almost strange. Elira sometimes felt like she was walking between reality and a dream. Kale remained steady, guiding her through hidden trails that were not visible at first glance. At times, he would stop and look at markings on stones or patterns in nature that Elira could not see. "How do you know where to go?" she asked once. Kale simply replied, "The mountains speak in their own way." Elira did not fully understand what he meant, but she trusted him more with each passing day. Even though he was quiet, he never led her into danger. Instead, he always found safe paths, even when the road seemed impossible. One afternoon, as they climbed higher than before, Elira noticed something unusual. The mist ahead was thicker than anything she had seen. It moved strangely, almost like it was hiding something. Kyle stopped. For a moment he stood completely still. Elira walked closer and asked, "What is it?" He did not answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on something ahead, something hidden within the mist. Finally, he spoke in a low voice. "We are close." "Close to what?" Elira asked. Kale looked at her for the first time that day, and his expression was different, serious, but calm. "To the path that is not seen by most people." Elira felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. She turned her gaze toward the mist again. It seemed like the mountains were no longer just mountains. Something deeper was hidden beyond them, something she could not yet see. And without realizing it, Elira took her first step into a mystery far greater than she had ever imagined. The higher Elira and Kale climbed, the stranger the world around them became. The air was no longer just cold. It felt light, almost unreal. The mountains were still there, but they no longer looked the same. Huge cliffs rose into thick white mist, and long narrow paths appeared and disappeared, as if the land itself was changing with every step. Elira had never seen anything like this before. She stopped often, trying to understand what she was seeing. Sometimes she felt like she was walking inside a dream, not in the real world. But Kyle kept moving forward with steady steps, as if he already knew where everything led. One morning, the sky was covered in thick clouds. The sun could not be seen clearly. Everything around them was quiet. Even the wind felt softer, like it was whispering instead of blowing. Elira looked at Kale and finally asked the question that had been in her mind for days. "Where are we going?" Kale did not stop walking. "Higher," he replied simply. "That is not an answer," Elira said, slightly frustrated. Kale glanced back at her for a moment, then said, "It is the only answer that matters." Elira did not reply after that. She knew Kale was not someone who spoke without reason. Still, the mystery around him was growing deeper every day. As they continued, the path became more difficult. There were moments when the ground disappeared completely, and Kale had to guide her carefully across narrow stone edges. Other times, they had to walk through thick mist so dense that Elira could not see more than a few steps ahead. But Kale never seemed lost. It was as if he could feel the direction instead of seeing it. After many hours of walking, they reached a place where the path ended at a massive cliff. Beyond it, there was nothing visible except a sea of white clouds stretching endlessly. Elira stopped in fear. "There is no way forward," she said. Cale walked to the edge and looked out calmly. "There is," he said. Elira shook her head. "This is a dead end." Cale turned to her. "Not all paths are meant to be seen clearly." He stepped closer to the edge and pointed toward something hidden in the clouds. At first, Elira saw nothing, but slowly, as her eyes adjusted, she noticed something unusual, a faint shape, a structure. It was not solid land, but something in between, like a bridge made of stone and mist, barely visible above the clouds. Elira took a step back. "That cannot be real," she whispered. Kyle looked at her. "It has always been real, it is just forgotten." Without waiting for her fear to grow, he stepped onto the hidden path. For a moment, Elira hesitated. The idea of walking onto something suspended above endless clouds was terrifying. Her heart was beating faster than ever before. But Cale stood calmly on the other side, waiting. "You will not fall," he said softly. "Only doubt makes it dangerous." Elira took a deep breath. Slowly, she stepped forward. The moment her foot touched the hidden path, she felt a strange but solid surface beneath her. It was real, stable, but it was unlike anything she had ever seen. Step by step, she followed Cale. Around them, clouds moved gently like waves in a silent ocean. The world below disappeared completely, and for the first time, Elira felt completely separated from everything she had known before. After what felt like a long journey across the floating path, something began to appear in the distance. At first, it looked like shapes rising from the clouds. Then structures became clearer. Tall towers, wide platforms, and glowing lights started to emerge. Elira's eyes widened. "What is that?" she whispered. Kyle looked ahead. "The place you were never told existed." As they moved closer, the full view of it slowly revealed itself. A vast kingdom floating above the clouds. Buildings made of stone and light stood together in perfect balance. Bridges connected different sections that floated separately in the sky. Waterfalls poured from nowhere, disappearing into clouds below. Soft, glowing lanterns floated in the air like stars that had fallen into the world. Elira could not speak. Everything felt too large, too beautiful, and too impossible. Cale stood beside her quietly. "We have arrived," he said. Elira looked at him, still unable to understand what she was seeing. "This place, it is real?" she asked. Cale nodded. "A forgotten kingdom, hidden from the world below." As they stepped forward into the glowing land above the clouds, Elira realized something she could not explain. Her life in the world below was gone, and something far greater had just begun. Elira stood still as she entered the floating kingdom above the clouds. Everything around her felt unreal. The air was calm, the light was soft, and the entire place looked like it was built from dreams. Tall towers rose gently into the sky, connected by wide bridges made of stone and glowing crystal. Gardens floated in the air, with flowers that shimmered in soft colors she had never seen before. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe properly. Kyle walked beside her without hesitation. He did not look surprised. Instead, he looked like someone returning home after a long time. People began to appear slowly from the paths and platforms of the kingdom. They wore simple but elegant clothes, and their movements were calm and respectful. When they saw Cale, many of them stopped and bowed their heads slightly. Elira noticed this immediately. She turned to Cale and whispered, "They know you." Cale gave a small nod, but did not explain yet. They walked through the kingdom together. Elira saw things that made her question everything she believed about the world. Water flowed in the air like rivers without land. Soft, glowing lights floated around like gentle stars. There was no sound of struggle, no noise of conflict, only peace and quiet order. Finally, they reached a large open area at the center of the kingdom. A grand structure stood there, larger than anything else she had seen. It was not built like a normal palace. It felt ancient, but alive, as if the place itself had memory. Cale stopped there. Elira looked around in confusion. "This place, what is it?" she asked. Cale took a slow breath. "This is the Sky Kingdom," he said. "A place that was hidden long ago from the world below." Elira turned toward him, still trying to understand. "Why was it hidden?" Kyle looked at the sky above them. "Because the world below forgot how to protect it," he said. "And so, It was sealed away. Elira felt a strange silence inside her chest. Everything she had been told in her life suddenly felt small compared to what she was seeing now. A group of elders from the kingdom slowly approached them. They were calm, wise-looking people who carried an air of deep respect. When they reached Kale, they bowed slightly deeper than the others. One of them spoke. "You have returned, guardian of the path." Elira looked at Kale in shock. "Guardian," she repeated softly. Kale did not deny it. The elder turned to Elira. "And you are the one who crossed the forgotten path with him." Elira did not know what to say. She only nodded slowly. The elder smiled gently. "Then the kingdom has accepted you." Elira felt overwhelmed. She had left her old life behind without understanding where she was going, and now she was standing in a place she never even knew existed. And somehow, she was being accepted into it. Later, Kale took her to a quiet place overlooking the floating kingdom. From there, she could see everything clearly: the glowing towers, the drifting bridges, and the endless clouds below. Elira finally broke the silence. "I thought you were just a mountain man," she said quietly. Kyle stood beside her. "I was that," he replied. "But not only that." Elira turned to him. "Then who are you really?" Kale looked at the horizon. "I am someone who stayed behind when others left. I chose silence over power, and I chose to protect what others forgot." Elira looked back at the kingdom below them. Everything now made sense in a way she could not fully explain. The calmness of Kale, the strange paths in the mountains, the hidden bridge in the clouds. It all connected to this place. She took a deep breath. "And me?" she asked. "Why did you bring me here?" Kyle looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because you did not turn away when the path became unknown." Elira was silent. "For many, the unknown is enough to make them stop," he continued. "But you kept walking." Elira slowly understood what he meant. She had not been chosen because of status or strength. She had been chosen because she continued forward even when she was afraid. The wind moved gently around them, carrying soft light from the floating kingdom. Elira looked at Kale again. "So this is my new life?" she asked. Kale nodded. "Yes, but it is also a beginning, not an ending." Elira turned back toward the glowing kingdom above the clouds. For the first time, she did not feel lost. She felt like she had stepped into something far larger than herself. And as she stood there beside Kale, she realized something important. The life she left behind was never the end of her story. It was only the path that led her here.